state are you in?
I'm in Massachusetts.
Okay, very good.
So, need I say more? All right, let's just see what's. And Charles Moscowitz here. Welcome to the program, Monday through Friday, 12 noon Eastern Standard Time on YouTube and all subscribing platforms. My guest is John Stemberger. John is a political activist. He's an attorney. He's involved in an organization, Florida Family Action. He's in Florida. John, thanks for joining me today.
Great to be with you, Charles.
Well, John, you know, the election is only days away. I predict a Trump tsunami on election day, but that's me. On the other hand, when I look at the mainstream media, I feel disheartened when I see polls on the Drudge Report say that Trump is behind by 15, 20, 40. I mean, it's very discouraging, but I know that that's probably not true, but you can't help but wonder. What is going on the ground, as they say, in Florida? Because Florida is key.
Well, that's right. It just, if I had to predict, it seems like Trump for a landslide. Obviously, the polling has been wrong 4 years ago at this time. And I think polling's become an inaccurate art form or science, however you want to talk about it, because number one, so many people don't have home phones anymore. Many people have cell phones that use as their home phones, which are harder to access. Number two, there's a real psychological factor in underpolling where the people want to say what they really believe or not. And I think the mushy middle, that's where the battleground is for. My hope is that their visceral reaction will be, look, Trump is not pretty, but he's the bodyguard that's standing between us and the mob in Philadelphia right now. He's the guy that's going to say enough is enough with the nonsense going on in our country in so many realms. And so that's my prayer, is that they'll go for Trump because of that that clear leadership.
I would tend to agree. I mean, I think that besides the fact that he's now a known entity in that he has presided over a very successful administration by any objective standards. We could look at any issue, foreign and domestic. And the enthusiasm that I've seen for him, I mean, I have never seen anything quite like this.
That's right.
And you have people coming out in spontaneous parades all over the country. Florida has seen Hispanics come out heavily for Trump. You know, the black vote apparently is moving in Trump's direction, according to recent polling, up to 30%. Even Jews are coming out for Trump. I mean, in New York, you have Jews rallying for Trump, my fellow Jews. In Brooklyn, people are throwing garbage at them, and the BLM is calling them anti-Semitic terms. But, you know, they're coming out anyway. And I think that on election day, a lot of people are going to, who may not otherwise be public about it, are going to vote. I mean, you know, in my case, you know, fellow Jews, they speak to me like it's a prison movie, you know, Chuck, we're with you, but don't tell anybody, you know, we're breaking out at noon, you know, but so, you know, you have, I think, the sacred, the most sacred act in a secular society, which is the vote on election day in the privacy of the booth. That's where it's going to be telling, and that's where people are going to show themselves. I hope and I pray, but you know, you never know. And I mean, it's kind of anxiety. I mean, it's a nail biter.
Yeah, people tell the truth in the polling box, and so yeah, it's really going to be an interesting situation. But I've never seen anything like the excitement, the rally here in Tampa. I mean, they've covered every major media market in Florida, and even minor cities. I would seem to guess, from looking at the times they've been here, you could live anywhere within 45 minutes and be somewhere near a Trump rally, whether it's Trump himself or one of his surrogates or his sons or whatever. I mean, they have covered this entire state, so they understand its importance. Yeah, and so our hope is that Florida will be clear for Trump. We won't be counting Chads with big eyeglasses election night. We hopefully won't be using the Amy Coney Barrett's vote in the Supreme Court with some election dispute. Hopefully it'll be clean and we can understand what's going on, but we're prepared for the worst as well. So,
well, you know, it's not a good scientific source, but even my Jewish mother, retired in Florida, has told me, and she's a liberal Democrat who hates Trump, is shocked by how many of her friends and colleagues are voting for Trump. So That's going to be if that happens, that's a revolution. And I think that in the aftermath, we're going to see two things that the left has, and they're both going to fail. The first one is burning black businesses, rioting in black cities, killing black people. And that's going to be failed because Trump will be in a position where he can restore law and order very quickly. And also with a black vote, it's going to show the falseness of that whole narrative. And secondly, the voter fraud machine, which I think will fall flat on its face. They're going to keep counting, but once it's in and he accepts victory, I just don't see that happening. And if it does continue, then there'll be one person that's going to save that, and that is Justice Amy Coney Barrett.
Yep.
So it's almost providential that she has been confirmed when she has been, and it's almost like the pieces falling into place. So, John, tell us about your organization and what you're doing in Florida.
So we are just simply right now trying to mobilize the vote. We have a 501c3 educational organization where we educate people on the importance of the fundamental institutions of life and marriage and religious liberty, the rights of conscience. The Supreme Court says that the freedom to believe, the freedom of the mind, right? Those things are being taken away in our soft totalitarian society now, where we're being pushed to the margins of the institutions of society. But right now, we're just solely with our 501c4 getting out the vote. We are trying to mobilize people, trying to get Christian pastors to wake up and tell their people to vote, and to just mobilize the sleeping giant, and to help Christians understand, look, a vote is not a Valentine. We're not expressing our love for someone. This is a strategic move about what kind of world we want to live in, right? This is about public policy. It's about whether dads are going to be employed or not. It's about whether unborn babies are going to be slaughtered in the mother's womb, or whether they're going to be given the chance to have a life. So there's major issues at play here. And we're not just voting for a man. We're voting for a worldview. We're voting for a set of values, radically different values that are embodied in tens of thousands of staff people, right? That really make the decisions. It's not just the president. It's the huge number of staff. And let me tell you something, Biden's staff, they will appoint people that oppose everything we believe in terms of capitalism, in terms of traditional values, in terms of foreign policy. This will not be pretty at all if Biden gets elected. And here's the thing, Charles. It used to be, let's say, John F. Kennedy. The Democrats and the Republicans were fairly close when they, in terms of economic issue, their promotion of capitalism, their understanding that communism was bad, the understanding of what a man and a woman was, right? They were pretty close. Now the parties are way apart, like far apart. And this is why everybody keeps saying this election is the most important election of our lifetime, because the parties keep getting farther and farther away. And so the choice is really stark. It's becoming more stark each time because the left has just gone far off the deep end. They've ignored history, tradition, common sense, the collective wisdom of human mankind and everything. They're just going into this abyss of madness that deconstructs our society and our country into something we've never recognized before.
Oh, it's the left has completely captured the Democratic Party, and they're anti-American, they're anti-Christian, they're anti-God. You have now Democrats coming out and saying that they're rejecting this party. The mayor of Flint, Michigan has now endorsed Trump.
Wow.
The governor of Puerto Rico has endorsed Trump.
Wow.
I think that a lot of Democrats, we see the early vote and we see that there are more Democrats than Republicans taking the early ballot. I wonder how many of them are voting for Trump. I would guess at least some, if not more. And of course, the Republicans are going to come out in force on foot on Tuesday and vote. And I think that's going to seal it. And the more of a sealing it can do, and the bigger the vote Trump gets, the more we're going to see the Democratic Party react by purging these leftists and coming back to itself, coming back to being a more patriotic, loyal opposition, like it used to be, like it was in the days of Kennedy. I remember I'm old enough to remember that John F. Kennedy got on national television and decried the fact that the Supreme Court had banned prayer in school. This was something everybody was shocked by.
Sure.
So now, of course, the left is open about this, and they're open about their agenda, and they're corrupting children, and they're corrupting our young people's minds I don't mean literally here, although I don't know, but
I would say literally, absolutely. I mean, the
okay.
public schools and, not that they're all bad, and basically the entertainment industry as a large is poisoning our kids' minds. They're pumping them with philosophical assumptions that are completely whacked and have no basis in history, and are just really assaulting them, whether it's the transgender thing, or whatever it
Yeah.
is, the fact that government's the answer to everything. They're just being misled by these two institutions that are very hard to compete with.
Now, I understand the argument for legal abortion, and this has been brought home to me by members of my own family. But I think that we ought to condemn abortion as wrong, and we ought to regulate it so that it's rare. And yet, there is a movement within the Democrats, a radical movement that actually views it as morally neutral and even as a virtue. Have you come across any of that?
Yes, all the time. I mean, it's there's no moderation at all on the left. That is their sacrament. Abortion, the right to kill your unborn child, has become the standard bearer for them. And it's a very sad thing. I think we're seeing some progress on that all over the country. The young people are understanding through the miracle of the sonogram and the technology that
Right.
this is not a blob of tissue. This is not a Buick. It's not a duck. It's a baby, right? And so we can see with clarity in 3D what's in mommy's womb. And so there's no more lying about the blob of tissue. This is a developing human being. No mother has given birth to anything other than a human being. And so the question is, just like with Dred Scott, when are we going to declare that this human being is a person? They never said blacks were not, they never said they weren't human beings. They said they were not persons. Personhood is the status of being protected under the United States Constitution. And our position is, from the moment of conception till natural death, the government's chief duty should be to grant rights and protection to the unborn child.
And I think that they like to say that conservatives are anti-science, but science is on your side and my side here. The science shows that this is a living being person that has feelings and that experiences pain. Science is also on the side of every single human being as either a male or a female. You can't be both, and you
Yep,
can't
that's
shift
right.
around and decide one day you're going to be something else. You can
Right.
pretend, but you're not. It's just that's the science is not. It's bad science. So
Well, they want it both ways. They want to say, oh, we're born gay, but then there's fluidity, right? So it's okay to go from being straight to being gay, but if you want to go back to being straight from being gay, you can't do that. That's horrible. That will cause you to commit suicide. So it's funny, they want to be fluid on one side when they're talking about gender, but then when they talk about sexual orientation, they want to say, oh, it's immutable. Oh, you're born that way. You can't have it both ways. It's bisexuality runs a locomotive through the born gay argument. It's like, if you can choose, then you can choose, right? And I understand there's impulses that happen. These are complicated things that have to do with how the impulses that you're born with and your environment. But the point is that it's not clear one way or the other. And now they've caught themselves in two paradigms where they want to have fluidity and they want to say you're born that way. And it's either one or the other. It can't be both.
And I think one of the things that they don't want to talk about, and you won't get the media reporting on this, are people who maybe had tried to transition to the opposite sex and now they regret it and they want to go back, and the psychological problems with that. Another one I heard, this is something that I was listening to an NPR show, this was years ago, where these women were talking about the fact that older women who had had abortions when they were younger were suddenly feeling depressed, and they were experiencing anxiety, wondering what would have happened if they had had the baby. And there's a great deal of remorse. And these women were discussing, what do we do about this? Not whether or not it exists. And their solution was use psych drugs, right? In other words,
Yeah.
cover it up, repress it. These women there's something wrong with these women. They need to be put on drugs. So, I mean, that shows how twisted and how actually immoral this agenda is. They're not looking at the whole person and really putting their interests first. So, this is a cultural and even a moral and spiritual battle. And I don't think the lines have been more clearly drawn than they are right now
That's
in
right.
this election. And it's all
Exactly
coming
right.
to a head in a matter of days. I mean, you can't get away from it. I mean, I can't sleep. I mean, people who care about this are worried. I'm
Yep.
looking at 50, 60 articles a day and videos. I'm waking up at 3:30 in the morning with the headphones in my smartphone, watching videos and interviews. I mean, this is very important. It's
It is.
going to affect the future.
It is.
And I think that it's important that there be a resounding vote for Trump, which would be natural and normal given his success, even on a secular level, let alone protecting the rights of people who are religious, protecting religious freedoms. We see, like in New York, the governor and the mayor are cracking down on Jews. That's unthinkable.
Yep.
I mean, all in the name of the pandemic, and yet the Pussy Hat March was fine. They ignored that one.
Yep.
Anyway,
Yep.
so I don't mean to rant here.
It's all right.
But so you're right there in the belly of the beast in Florida. I mean, I think that my understanding is that Republican registration has been up. You have a good governor who has cracked down on some of the corruption in Broward County, which happened last time. People outright stealing votes. I think even yesterday they found someone doing this. They found a bag of votes in a garbage bin. And I think that enough people are now watching this and keeping a close eye on it that I don't think they're going to get away with it. And Florida is key. Once Florida goes red, that's going to be it. It really is the key state, the bellwether state.
Well, we're working hard here to try to mobilize for Trump. We're working hard to try to get people to understand that, this is about public policy. It's not about collegiality. Ultimately, politics must be about policy. It must be about economics. It must be about, we're not electing a pastor.
Right.
Would I like for Trump to be more collegial? Would I like to be more kind and compassionate? Absolutely. But that's not the main issue here. The main issue is whether we're going to have a civilization or whether we're going to have a mob rule that just is rioting in the streets with governors and mayors and presidents just turning the other way, going, oh, they're peaceful protesters. What are you talking about? And the media ignoring all of this. And so I think that it's literally going to take an act of God. Every secular institution has opposed him. The media, I mean, it's just been, you've had all the hearings against him, the accusations, the conspiracy, all of this.
The government. Yeah.
And then the coronavirus that he's also managed to do. And so it's going to literally take an act of God to make it happen. And if it does, I think we can be thankful in that way, because it's just the opposition has been unbelievable and unprecedented.
And I think more people are seeing how corrupt the media is, going out with a story based on one anonymous source. The most obvious and glaring example was, as you suggested, these riots where you saw cities burning behind reporters who were saying this is a peaceful riot. I mean, that everyone saw that. And now with the suppression of the Biden scandal, which is vast and growing and corrupt, and it shows how corrupt and deranged this family is, and the outright ban of information about that on Twitter, and open, it's the biggest case of censorship in American history. For NPR to come out flat out and say, we are not covering this. They should lose their nonprofit status for that. And I think if Trump's reelected, they probably will. But I think these things are trickling out. I think people are becoming aware of it. They're not suppressing it. If anything, they're probably shining a bigger light on it.
Charles, if I could tell you something, I don't think this has been discussed ever publicly. Consumer Reports, sadly, is the latest organization to now become leftist and woke.
I'm not surprised.
They contacted me. We did a robocall to super voters, basically encouraging them to vote and to vote in person, not vote by mail, because each year thousands of votes are discarded or discounted or tampered with as a result of this, being able to be moved around, right, as opposed to being put into a machine. And so I sent out a robocall saying, vote in person, either early vote or in person on election day, because ballots are tampered with or they're misplaced and just, whatever. And so Consumer Reports called me on that and said, there's no ballot tampering. And I said, what are you talking about? I sent them the White House report, 381 pages of documented voter fraud, many of which had to do with absentee ballots and mail-in ballots. And they still wrote an article saying that my claim was false because I had said that ballots are being tampered with. And they quoted with some guy that said, there's no evidence of election fraud anywhere. It's as if it's so like, just say the opposite of what's true.
Well, they're
and people
just lying.
can't believe it.
Yeah,
So
they're just lying, and
unfortunately,
they're all
I said to Consumer Reports, I said, yeah, I've been subscribing to you guys for years. And since when do you go from comparing products to now, second guessing political speech all of a sudden?
yeah, they've gone off the left into the left wing deep end, but yeah, and they're all lying. I mean, that's all that is, and it's going to get worse and worse every minute as we approach election day. I hope people see through it. Briefly, you said that you were on with a talk show host before me who really kind of racked you over the coals. What is their justification? What are they saying?
Well, it was a shock jock interview.
Okay.
Whatever. I mean, he was just ranting and raving and carrying on. He didn't have many good arguments. I just did my own to defend it as I could on live radio. You know how that goes.
Sure.
Occasionally somebody slips through the cracks and hides who they really are and then hammers you. And so I just was on the ropes and did the best I can to do a knockout punch for 15 minutes before I exited gently and gracefully.
Well, that's all you can do. And, you just stand there and stand up and take a swing. Anyway, so John, let my listeners and viewers know how they could get more information about you and your organization.
Listen, I don't know if you know my good friend Andrew Beckwith in Massachusetts, but he does what I do. And
tell him to contact me. I'll put him on.
Okay, great. Yeah, Massachusetts Family Institute. Great guy. And so we're here in Florida, but we're a part of the Family Policy Council movement. On our website, you can go and find all of them, including the one in Massachusetts run by Andrew Beckwith.
Mm-hmm.
But it's at flfamily.org. That's flfamily.org. And there's a list of all around the country, all the policy councils in all 42 states.
So you're in 42 states. You've got an extensive reach in each state. You're really mobilizing. That's great. I mean, this is how you do it. It's grassroots. It's reaching people person to person. Tell your family members, tell your friends, tell your colleagues to get out and vote. Get out and vote for Trump. As the Irish used to say in Boston, vote early and vote often. I'm kidding. Anyways, so John, listen, thanks so much for joining me this afternoon.
Great to be with you, Charles.
Thank you. Talk to you soon.
Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.